if you look at some of these expeditions, they seem like rolling gunfights. They're in shootouts all the time, but they're often in shootouts where they're with members from one tribe and they're fighting with the tribe's ancestral enemies, or just trappers are fighting with a tribe, or just trappers are fighting with a faction of a tribe, but then there's other factions of the same tribe that they're not in conflict with.
There's a quote from one of the accounts that we looked at where they basically say you can't pay a free trapper a higher compliment than to tell him you'd mistaken him for an Indian.
Yep. Even guys commenting, they start walking. The mountain men would start walking like an Indian. On one hand, you want to go like, oh, there were these great egalitarians, and like totally adapted to this lifestyle. But then what contradicts that is they demonstrate at times a very hostile relationship to tribal members.
I think to maybe just step back and look at the bigger picture, it's not like the mountain men were this big wave of white, quote unquote, civilization, coming head to head with Native America. Like there's this pre-existing politics in the Northern Rockies and the Upper Missouri. All these tribes had these pre-existing relationships and power struggles with one another. It's a very dynamic period of time in Native history because of the introduction of firearms, and horse culture has only been there for, 150 years maybe. And there's trade goods coming down, like firearms coming down from the north, from Hudson's Bay Company. And so if you're a tribe like the Blackfeet and you see American traders and trappers developing good relationships, or at least trading material goods with your historic rivals, like all of a sudden these interlopers are a threat to you. And so the mountain men are pretty insignificant in the relative numbers, but like what they represent in terms of upsetting the status quo in Native America is pretty significant. And so I think like part of what we do in that chapter is try to explain the underlying dynamics that shape day-to-day encounters between a mountain man who runs into a band of Shoshone hunters, or who runs into a band of Blackfeet hunters, or whatever else, because it varies widely. And it also depends on the individuals involved.
Yeah.
There are some individuals within tribes who are much more hostile to a white incursion, and there are some individuals in those same tribes who are perhaps more accommodating. And so it's just like you never really know what you're going to get.